Hello, everyone. My name is Cassidy Diamond. I am the Associate Director of Public Programs and Events here at the IDA. Welcome for this conversation around Faya Dayi, moderated by IndieWire's Anne Thompson. Before we get started, I would like to offer a brief land acknowledgement. I'm coming to you from Chicago, which is on the unceded land of the Potawatomi people, who have been stewards of this land for generations. I would also like to thank IndieWire for their support of this series. And you can catch our upcoming screenings and all of our past Q&A recordings on our website, documentary.org/screening-series. And without any further ado, I'm going to go throw things to Anne to get things started.
Hello, everybody. Please welcome to another IDA panel. This time we have Jessica Beshir, the extraordinary filmmaker behind Faya Dayi, a movie that is really unlike any other. I have to say, it's this gorgeous black and white examination of the world of Khat. So tell me, Jessica, how the hell did you find out about this world that you immerse us in?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor to speak with you and to be part of the IDA screening series. I grew up there. I grew up in Harar, and that is the world that I grew up in.
So were you born in Mexico?
I was born in Mexico, but I went to live in Ethiopia. My father is Ethiopian. And he came to study medicine in Mexico. And then when he went back, I think I was 3 when we moved, to Ethiopia, and I lived there until I was 16.
Wow.
And I grew up in Harar.
So were you aware of this entire industry that you are chronicling here? Explain what Khat is and how dominant it is in that part of the world, or how it became what it is today.
Yeah, growing up in Harar, chat, we call it chat. When they write it, they write Khat, but in Harar we call it chat. Chat was part of and continues to be part of the culture, truly. My grandmother also had a little garden in the back garden where she also grew up. She had chats. And so it was not an alien thing for me. I grew up seeing it in a way. For the most part, it was the Sufi imams that were using this chat in order to attain a certain state so that they can offer their prayers all night long to their creator. So for me, it was nothing new. What was new, though, when I went back, was that the topography had completely changed. When I was driving from the city to Harar, I just noticed there was no longer, the coffees or the sorghum, and it was just chat. So that was definitely like shocking to even the senses, to me. And another thing that was also very shaking me was the fact that our lake, Haramaya Lake, where we grew up, every wedding, some weekends, we would go to that lake. There were fishermen. There was a little, fish restaurant where, we had that. That was gone, completely gone. And so I had so many questions about what was happening. And this was at surface level when I first went back. And also realizing the magnitude of the trade now, of the economy. It just felt that, the whole world evolved around chat, So I but what truly, I mean, those were realizations, but what truly drew me in were other things. And that was, I started to hear about many stories about how we were losing our youth through the border, how a lot of even my friends, were now, they didn't have a job. They basically, child had become a means to an end itself. Whereas in the past, people, like the farmer, he wakes up, he has coffee, he has a little chat, he call it a jabana, which is the eye opener. And then the farmer would work, and the people in the city, they would take lunch breaks, they have little lunch, sit down, socialize, because it's a socializing, and you socialize with people, you chew a little bit, and then you go back to work. But now there was no work to go back to anymore, so people will sit for until like 8 p.m. until they go home. And what struck me was how it was also tugging at the social life, at the social fabric of people that I knew. So I guess that's what kind of led me into embarking in this journey where I felt like um, I was trying to bring some sort of like the prismatic sense of everything, because everything was in conversation with each other, thematically speaking, even in the form of the film. I wanted it to be in conversation with, because, and also with a lot of respect, because chat in a way has been, it has a spiritual connection. The genesis of it was that, just as any place else in the world where there is that spiritual plant, medicinal plant, that people use for those purposes, and now it was being commodified and had gone mainstream, and it was going elsewhere, and in a way, delving more into the society, finding out about the political forces that were also at play here, the social forces that were at play, the marginalization of the Oromo people, and um, and also how the farmer was responding to this climate change, where previously, the other crops were becoming no longer sustainable.
Well, of course, this is what the movie's about. But what's really extraordinary about the movie is the way that you show all of this, and the intimacy and the imagery. And so, let's talk about your background, and the shorts that you've made, how the shorts have informed this movie, and some of the influences in terms of your work as a cinematographer and the black and white, extraordinary black and white, poetic cinematography.
No, thank you so much. You know, I have to say that I started shooting um, when I first went back to Ethiopia, and that was to reconnect with my family, with my grandmother, who was becoming very old, and also with my friends and family that I completely disconnected with, for a long time, because when we left because of political turmoil, and it was a very violent uprooting, literally. Within 72 hours, we had to leave the country. So, and this is pre-social media. I, you feel like your life goes up in fragments, and it's all like a disruption, in a way. And because here we are in a new place. My parents are, they have 4 children. They have to, get it on again, start all over again. And so you don't really have time to look back. And
Where
my
did you guys
father,
go?
but we went to Mexico. We went back
Oh,
to
you did.
Mexico, to,
Okay.
yeah, to where I was born and where my mother is from. So um there's no time to be looking back and to kind of process this together. My father, I mean, it comes with a lot of trauma, and my father never really wanted to talk about it. He was just looking forward and thinking of how, how am I gonna bring my family forward. So So you live with that. You live with that, and it stays there. But there was always this desire and yearning to reconnect, with that which is yours, which is my childhood, which is my family, which is my friends. And so in a way, it becomes a way of remembering, putting back together these pieces that went up in fragments, And so when I first went back, I filmed my grandmother, who had a lot of messages for my father, who was still in Mexico. He had not been able to go back. And basically, she was calling him. It's like, please, I am very, very old, but my body won't die because it's waiting for you. So can you please come and deliver me? Just let me, because I'm tired. She was 98 when she passed away. So it was these kind of things that I was filming, and I always felt so um, from that moment on, the camera was a way of to respond to what was moving me, very viscerally. So I thought, okay, and I started to have ideas, maybe this is something that I could do. I really loved, what it was doing to showing that to my father, because it was a very emotional response, to what was happening. But life had other plans. I had a baby, and all of a sudden, I just didn't know how to even start. But I started. When my baby was very small, I used to take her to the park in the morning, very early, like at 6 a.m. And when I moved to Brooklyn, there was this man that I used to see walk around with this wooden with something, in a plastic bag. I have no idea what it is. But there's something about him that was just so purposeful in his walk. There's something that he was transmitting. So one day when I was at the park, I passed by this little tunnel, and I saw him, and I finally realized what he was doing. In that big bag, he had a wooden board on which he was tap dancing, but he wasn't tap dancing for show. It was just his practice. It's a way of communing with himself, and he was finding so much joy in that. And slowly we became friends. And I asked him if I could film him. And the thing was that what really, really, drew me to him was it was giving me a sense that I could also do that. Maybe my wooden board would be a camera where I walked around, not for show, but just with myself. And he inspired me so much, and that's when I started filming, the He Who Dances on Wood, and that became, one of my first short films.
So, were you studying film?
I went to UCLA, and I wanted to study, film production, but I couldn't afford it. I was a foreign student. I was working 3 jobs. There was no way I could afford the film and the development of the film. So there was this teacher at UCLA who was also in a chair of the film department. So I cried. I went and I cried. I said, I can't do this, And he said to me, look, don't worry about it. Just go to the film critical studies, department, and just watch films. Just watch films. This Tashoma Gabriel is his name. I'll never forget him. He wrote a lot about nomadic cinema, and reading that also spoke so much to me, because it's talked about like that disconnect and the idea of home, where home is no longer like that geographic space, but home is something else. So I did that, and when I finished that, I moved to New York. But like I said, I did other things, and Fred Nelson, who is the tap dancers, was my way back into this.
But tell me about your training as a cinematographer, because all your shorts, you shot them, and you did your own sound. And were you like a one person band while you were shooting these films?
You know, I, once I started seeing what I was shooting with Fred, those were my first, images coming out. I was so excited about the possibility. I started learning whatever I could online. It was about that. It was about learning everything I could online, because to me, I needed to make justice to what I was seeing, and that was Fred, the tap dancer. So I shot, like for a long time, I had like all of this footage, but I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know anyone in the film industry. And that's when I went back to Ethiopia and I started filming this film, the Faya Dayi, which I didn't know it was Faya Dayi then. I just started filming. And yeah, it was basically it was an autodidactic practice. But I love that it was that way, because it became more of almost like a spiritual practice, because it was doing something, for me. It was doing something to me. It was really showing me the way when I felt lost completely. And that was showing me the way. And it was just very, very difficult. But yeah, so, and then I went to, and
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna. I know. I want to know what you wanted to say. I was curious to know if there was another filmmaker. The filmmaker who comes to mind for me is Francesco Rossi, the director of Fire at Sea. Is he someone you're familiar with? Just that observational quality, the idea that it isn't an obvious narrative, that you're following people and you're looking for these extraordinary vistas and images and details that you can later string together in a form that you would find in the editing room.
Hmm. I didn't see Fire at Sea. I saw Notturno,
There
which
you
is
go.
which is
Same
his
guy.
latest. And I can see where you're coming from, and which I absolutely loved, Notturno. But at that time, he wasn't a point of reference in a way, because I hadn't seen, his films. It was, for me, it was a very intuitive process. It was an intuitive process where I was just, trying to respond to what was moving me, because it felt like when I was shooting, there was a certain healing happening. Um, Again, when I was shooting Fred, the healing was definitely that, me thinking I might not ever do anything with film. And every time I did and I shot, I was like, yes, I am. Yes, I am. It was just like a way of self-encouragement in a way. So yeah, it was an intuitive process for me, like everything, and just really going for what was healing and what was moving.
What camera were you using?
I was using a 5D Mark II.
And
That
why
was,
black and white?
um, there are many reasons. I mean, at the beginning, when I knew this film was going to be in black and white, even though at the beginning I saw the footage in color. Khat is a very colorful place. It's one of the most colorful places you'll see in this world. It bursts with color. And it was gorgeous and beautiful. Yet I didn't feel like that was the story that I was trying to tell. Um, when I met the Sufi moms in Harar, and I started to spend more time and with the farmers, they really taught me so much about how I was going to make this film, because it is their philosophies truly that led me. And I will tell you, for example, even in the film, one of them says, we humans are equipped to see appearances, but can we truly tell what's inside? And for me, black and white was definitely a way of bringing that into the film. I was trying to focus on what was inside, what what were these souls uttering to each other, to 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 the creator, to the to themselves too. So I felt like that color was very distracting, and I wanted to focus more on on um, on these on these feelings.
So, how long did you shoot for?
About 10 years. It
Well, some
took
of them get
about.
older. There's one guy that's got more of a beard, and right? Yeah, some of them, yeah. I
Yes.
wondered how long it was.
Yeah, it took that long. I started shooting. I have some footage in the film from 2010, and even the hard drives are so old, like these huge hard drives. But yeah, it took that long because first of all, I mean, I live here in New York, so I was trying to go back there every year. I was trying to save up enough so that I can pay for my plane ticket. Thank God I had a lot of friends that still live there, that helped me, that really helped me through this process. But but yeah, it took that long also because I needed to understand what was going on, but truly give it time and the time that it deserved for me to even learn. I needed to learn not just thematically what was happening in the country, but I also needed to learn about craft. I needed to learn um, uh, like I was saying, this was a journey of learning, and I hope it never ends, because it was to learn about cinematography, to learn about light, to learn about how do you tell a story, with these shadows. What does this mean to you? All of these questions. So yeah, it took that long, and also because I didn't have any funding, like I said. So for the first 8 years, I was trying to do it myself. But it really, I have to say, taught me so many things, like self-reliance, number one. Number two, truly, in the absence of any other collaborators per se, I needed to rely on myself. I needed to trust my intuition. I needed to trust my instinct and truly go for it. But it's a struggle because there are so many times when I really felt like, my gosh, this, I don't, and so many people would tell me that I was wasting my time. Uh,
No.
right?
So there are a couple of shots I'm just very curious about. Like, I don't know why this is the one that struck me so much, but there was this one where, and you do this a lot, where you have a disconnect, it's disjunctive between what you're using for sound and what you're actually showing us. And sometimes you go back to where the sound came from and show it to us, but sometimes we don't know necessarily where the sound came from. There's this one image of a woman with her back to us, with her flowing gown. We don't see her face, and there's smoke coming out behind her against a faraway thing. There's another one where you do slow motion, and the boy is going across these windows that are at some high elevation looking out. These are extraordinary shots. But you
Thank
had to think them up. You had to think them up. You had to know that you needed to shoot in slow motion, or that you saw some smoke. How you maybe you do you ask the people to stand in a certain place sometimes? Tell me how you worked with your subjects there.
In the farms, I was mostly following their rhythms. Um, once you spend time, with someone, then you start realizing what they do and why they do it and where and when. And so, in spending time and in learning this, then by the time I bring the camera, so it became mostly responding to those movements, responding to those actions, whatever the actions may be. Um, for the most part, it was very um, intimate eruptions of possibilities, you know? So we would just be speaking or talking or having lunch. And then, for example, my friend, she cooked me lunch, and then we were sitting and she was knitting and she was singing. And I just took out my camera and I was just sitting there and we were just spending time, you know? I feel like for the most part, this is how this film was made. Um,
So something would catch your eye. You would see someone cooking something or making pancakes. I'm not sure what they're called, but that's what they looked like. Or, you know, you were sort of fascinated by the different tools and details of their daily life. But there are some other. Then you were following certain stories too.
I was following certain stories, like that shot, for example, that you speak of in that room, in that big room where Mommy Muhammad is walking. You know, that's a museum actually. It's a museum of Rimbaud, Arthur Rimbaud, and is a French poet that lived in Harare for a long time, and so they have that museum, you know, for him, and it's a house of poetry. And when me and Muhammad were, you know, visiting there one day, I really wanted to know how it would affect him, you know, to be in that space, or what he would do. So I was truly like following. I had been in that place many
But there
times
was
before.
some circular motion going on.
There is a circular, yes, and what I loved about it was that it truly reflected a lot of the ideas that I had, having learned in conversations with people, how the circularity of life, you know, and the circularity even of the trade itself. It's a nonstop 24-hour you know, process. And in a way, it resonated, you know, very profoundly, because it's also like the repetition of history. You know, we were somehow, if you may, expelled. You know, the country expels you when there's so much political pressure. um, that is what happened, you know, with us. And now it's happening again with these, you know, children that are choosing to leave, and but in a very dangerous way. You know, I have a daughter who's like literally 2 years younger than Muhammad. I couldn't imagine her, you know, making her these decisions.
Right. No, it's true. And you get further and deeper into the economy of this thing and the scale of it as you go along the way. There's also some so you also got some amazing footage at night, where the light was must have been very tricky to get, the light sources. You must have had very sensitive um, cameras to be able to do some of this.
Well, it was my 5D Mark II, but I had one fast lens, which was my 50-1.4. It was my fastest lens, and that was my go-to for anything that was, you know, nighttime situation. Um, I have to say that, you know, the moment I had to have many conversations with myself about equipment, because, you know, a lot of the times you feel like, oh, I wish I had this, or I wish I had that, and I wish, and that was very distracting to me because it was making me feel bad. It was not making me feel good. So I said to myself, you know, we will just do what we can with what we can. And that was my lens. That was my lens that I filmed all of the night
Amazing.
shots with. And it teaches you, because it's a 50, then it teaches you to move, so that you have to move and you have
Yeah.
to find the light.
And you would get on bicycles and trucks, and you would find ways to find new ways. You know, the way that you would frame your shots is just extraordinary. Um, but you had to put it together also. So talk to me about your editing process, because that must have been another intuitive process. But you had to come up with a structure for this.
Yeah. So, and that was a beautiful process too, I have to say, one of the most beautiful ones, actually, because when I met my editor, the first thing that we talked about was, of course, she was going to look at the footage, And I wanted to truly empower her to use her intuition as well, so that we can both go into this intuitive journey together. So we sat, we had so many conversation about the stories that I was trying to tell, about the feelings that I was trying to transmit, and about the spirituality that was so important and central to the film. So um, once we had all of these conversations, then she started to string shots that she liked. And so that was also a way of me to get to know her and understand, okay, this is what your intuition is telling you. Okay, so then we met at some point, and then we went together
and figured out where to put the sound as well. And the the incredible singing that's going on, all the different sources that you have for creating mood. And but what was your sense of the impact of this culture, this drug culture, on the people there, and what kind of sense of the future, hope for the future, did you come out of this with? Because it's not like you're hammering away at some terribly negative story. You are taking some beauty and hope out of this too.
Absolutely. For me, this film was exactly about the beauty of the place and the people, and also about the spirituality. I cannot stress that enough, because for me, it was never about like this drug film. The farmer, you cannot blame the farmer for choosing to plant chat, because the farmer is responding to a demand, number one, and the farmer is also responding to his own survival. I never really met, even though there are farmers that have huge, chat farms, I really didn't meet like these incredibly rich, farmers. They're not, so who are the people that are making the money? It's the brokers, ultimately, in that nighttime, in Awadai, that nighttime market that you see. That's where the money is being made. The farmer brings the chat, and then it gets brokered, you know what I mean? And then it goes into export and so forth. So there was no point, there was no reason. I actually like hold the farmer with reverence, truly. So that was one of the aspects. Another aspect is that this was and is continues to be part of the culture. The fact that now is commodified, the fact that now people, even the youth, are using it. It was never about pointing a finger. It was trying to find out why. It's almost like, if your brother all of a sudden is going through an addiction, you can actually, you can, bash him, or you can actually have a loving conversation, say, hey, what's going on? Why are you medicating so much? What is going on? So that was the question, what is going on? And that is where I found all of the political pressures, all of the social pressures that were happening in that space. Why is our youth medicating so much? Why are they choosing to leave so much? What is going on? So in a way, that points us to other spaces, um, that and of course, I have um, um, the Quero and the Carre, which are the youth, the Oromo youth. These are students. These are even children of farmers that waged, or that did a very courageous, peaceful protest for 3 years, from 2015 to 2018, until the prime minister resigned in 2018, because they were standing against land grabbing. The government was taking these lands, creating huge displacement, and so it was a response to that. So there are so many things that are happening around. It was never about pointing a finger. And also I wanted to also bring this back into its genesis, its origin. It's used in spiritual circles. in
Right.
social circles.
So tell us about how you brought this film into the world. Okay, so you got some backing for it. You got into festivals. You got awards. You know, things happened. So tell me about that.
So so for post-production, I mean, I was very, lucky to meet collaborators, that came, and because without it this would not have been possible. So I had Neon Heart Productions that came, Rhiannon Jones, who invests in women filmmakers. So she came in, and then XTR also came in, and then it got accepted to Sundance. That was our first festival. So that was the launching pad, for this film, and it was during COVID, and it was during online. But I never really thought about holding the film. Truly, I was just the happiest to finish it. After 10 years, I didn't want to hold back anything. I just wanted it to go, and I really am so happy about the reception that it's gotten,
It's pretty
from a lot
amazing.
of my peers. Yeah, it's been just really beautiful that way.
Yeah, yeah. And what if people have responded to it, and you probably didn't know that it would hit people the way it did? You probably, what if people told you? What if people said to you?
You know, I definitely didn't have an idea at all. Um, I I I just truly, wasn't that packed with myself. Oh, I'm going to finish this film one day, right? So that was it. But then, after Sundance, I had, people call me, peers calling me, to truly, tell me that they really liked it. That meant a lot. That really meant a lot, and that has been the most beautiful part of this journey, meeting the community, meeting the documentary community that has embraced me and really nurtured me and hold me through this all. It's that has been the most beautiful gift.
So where you must be getting a lot of attention from people who want to work with you now. So what's coming up next?
um, well, I did speak with a few people, and right now the film is like it has taken over everything, So, but I am developing, another film that really I can't really talk about it yet, but it's something, again, very, very personal, and I hope that when this year is over, I'll be dedicating more time to it.
Okay, enjoy it while it lasts. It's a you deserve all these accolades, and thank you for explaining it all to us.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for
having
being with
me.
us, everyone, and thank you, Andrea. Okay.